hamster's awake. Hello, girlie. Oh, she's sticking her head out. Hello. I'm just going to have to get on with this, okay? Bless her. Oh my god, I am not going to be able to film today, am I? We've got Cornelia making a racket. I've got planes flying overhead. The lighting is crap. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. I'm Shah, and this is Thoroughly Enjoyed Books. In today's video, we are doing a wrap-up of all the books I read, or in this case, didn't read, in the month of September. So I found that historically, September is a really bad reading month for me. I think it's a mixture of, particularly the last couple of years, going back to uni, so I get a lot of reading that I have to do for university work and for my modules, which doesn't necessarily mean me starting and finishing books within the same month, or taking longer to read a book in some instances because I'm studying it. A book that would normally take me maybe 3 hours to read can take me 10 hours because I'm annotating as I go along, and because that means readjusting a lot of the things in my life. Over the last few weeks as well, I've been doing a lot of research into hamsters because I have got a hamster now and I want to give it the best life possible. So I have spent a lot of time watching hamster care videos, reading articles about how to look after hamsters, and that has taken away a lot of my reading time. I might be a little bit obsessed. That being said, I did manage to read 4 books in the month of September. 2 of those were audiobooks. I did half an audiobook as well, which I will get to, and then 2 physical books, one of which was a reread, and I'm just going to dive in and talk to you about them. The first book I want to talk to you about today is The Henna Wars. The Henna Wars is by Adiba Jagida, and its own voices. It follows a young girl called Nishat, who is a Bengali Muslim, and her relationship with a woman called Flavia, who is mixed race. They live in Ireland, and their school begins a business competition of sorts, which is quite popular in schools in Ireland and the United Kingdom, where maybe you're given like £10 to start your own business, given the tools to start a business, to have to come up with an idea. Nishat comes up with the idea of doing a henna business because it's part of her Bengali Muslim culture. However, Flavia starts one which is instantly more popular than Nishat's was ever going to be, and it explores that cultural appropriation. However, Nishat is a lesbian, and it explores being both Asian, Muslim and a lesbian in a Western white culture. Ireland is very white, in case you didn't know. I really enjoyed this book because it looked at the nuances of cultural appropriation, and I liked the fact that it looked at it not with a white character appropriating something, but in another black character. It explores how Flavia also struggles with her identity as mixed race, and just the whole book it's so interesting. I really enjoyed this book. It was very fluffy. I don't think I connected to it as much as I would have done maybe a few years ago. I think it does err on the younger edge of YA, but that doesn't make it any less enjoyable. I did request this from my library, and they got it in as an audiobook pretty quickly, in fact. And like I said, it was an enjoyable read. I learned a lot about cultural appropriation and henna, and I really appreciated learning about that as well, actually. What I am going to do for this book is leave some links down below to some other Own Voices reviews of this, because I think their views will be a lot more helpful, because I feel like I didn't enjoy this quite as much because it wasn't written for me, and that's absolutely fine. We can acknowledge that books aren't always written for us. I just thought it was quite a fun, interesting read. The next book I have is Can't Escape Love by Alyssa Cole. This is another one I listened to on audiobook, and it is a novella. It is book 2.6, I believe it's classified as, of the Reluctant Royal series. This looks at Reggie, who is Portia's disabled sister. I really enjoyed this relationship. Again, it's one I don't remember too much of. From what I remember, Reggie meets this boy whose name I've completely forgotten online, and then years later she reaches out to him to ask for some help with making a recording of his voice because it helps her to sleep, because I think he used to do a podcast or something with her, and a relationship blossoms from it. And just like the rest of Alyssa Cole's romances, I really enjoyed it. It's sexy, it's lovely. I can't say anything else other than that. I think you should go and read these books. I've listened to them all on audiobook and loved them all and devoured them all. My favourite one was A Duke by Default, and unfortunately I was listening to A Prince on Paper in the month of September and had to DNF it, not because I wasn't enjoying it, but because I decided to cancel my Scribd subscription in the month of September just because it was too expensive. I had a little sit down with my finances and just decided it had to go. I've got plenty of books behind me. My library is really good at getting audiobooks in. It just made sense for me to just cancel it, and I didn't realise my account had expired. My membership had expired until I went to listen to A Prince on Paper, and I couldn't listen to it, so I was about halfway through that one, but I am going to come back to it at some point, so I'm not going to talk about that one any further. I do really love Alyssa Cole's books. I love all of her romances. She has a new thriller coming out, which might be the first thriller that I will willingly buy a copy of. Those were the audiobooks. The book that I spent most of September reading, and by the most of September I think it took me 2 weeks to read this, was The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, which was a reread for me. I buddy read this with my lovely friend Charlotte from Coiny Reads. I'll leave a link to down below. Go and check her out. We both used to claim that this was our favourite book. However, we hadn't reread it. In my case, for 8 years. In her case, I think she said maybe 6 years. This is a World War II historical fiction novel told from the point of view of Death, who is following our main character Liesel, who is a book thief. She steals a gravedigger's book when her brother is buried, and this kind of becomes a habit for her. She learns to read and understand the world that she is in. I don't want to talk about this too much because I do want to do a whole video on it, because it was a reread and because it was so important to me, and just talk about the experience of buddy reading it with Charlotte, because it was amazing. I loved it. I was so scared going into it. I was absolutely terrified. I didn't think I was going to love it as much because I read this when I was 16, 17 years old, and I just thought maybe my opinion would change a lot, because a lot of people whose opinions I value greatly and have similar reading tastes to me don't enjoy this book. But I loved it. I didn't love it as much as I did when I was 16, 17. I think, you know, my understanding of the wars and my preferences when it comes to reading have developed a lot from then. But I did find that I really enjoyed this book and I cried my eyes out at the end. There were a few times in this book where I questioned what Marcus Zusak had written. Obviously, it's a World War II book and it's set in Germany, so there's a lot of persecution of the Jews in particular in this book, which is to be expected. But there were some anti-Semitic comments that were made that I did question why they were included. I understand that this book is of its time. It has to demonstrate that anti-Semitism in a way, but I thought it did that enough through the actual persecution of the Jews, rather than having to have some of the characters outright make stereotypical comments about Jews and wealth, because they weren't challenged in any way in this book. It wasn't addressed why that view was held. The comments weren't coming from necessarily the bad guys. I guess it kind of showed how these views were filtered through society, but I don't necessarily think they were condemned in the right way. Let me know what you think of that in this book, because there was a couple of characters that said things that made me a bit uncomfortable. But I sobbed like a baby at the end of this book, and I cried a little more than I did the first time I read it, which really took me by surprise. I didn't think I would be sobbing as hard as I did. It was about half an hour that I just sat and sobbed, and it broke my heart into a million pieces. So thank you so much to Charlotte for finally forcing me to read this. We were sending each other little video messages as we were going, crying our eyes out, and yeah, I love this. I love this book a lot. And the last book I have to talk about is a really depressing book, but it is my favourite book of the month, and it's one of my favourite books of the year so far, and that is Here is the Beehive by Sarah Crossan. This is Sarah Crossan's first adult book. It is also written in verse, like some of her children's books are, or young adult books, depends how you classify them. And this is everything I like in a book. I've talked before about how my favourite trope in romance and literary fiction is this idea of two people who can't get their relationship to work. I'm not sure what the name of the trope is, so if you know, please let me know, because I need to be able to just say this is the trope rather than explaining it every time. And it's this trope where you follow somebody's relationship over years and they just can't seem to make the relationship work. They could be getting together as a teenager and we come back to them every year like we do in One Day, where Emma and Dexter just cannot make their relationship work. Or in Normal People, where we follow Marianne and Connell over a short period of time and they get together and break up and get together and break up, and the miscommunication is the key factor as why they can't make their relationship work. That kind of thing is my favourite thing to read about. This book follows Anna, who has been having an extramarital affair with Connor for 3 years. Both are married with kids, and they meet and they have this sexual relationship for 3 years. However, Connor dies. Anna has to go through the grieving process alone. She cannot tell anybody that she's upset this guy died. She cannot discuss it with anybody. She is dealing with this very much alone, and she develops a lot of unhelpful coping mechanisms. You find out very early on that she is actually the executor of Connor's will. She was his solicitor, that is how they met, and the whole thing is messy and it's so heartbreaking. And this is just what I love about this trope. It explores human emotion, it explores the mistakes people made, it explores the fact that we are imperfect, that we hurt other people, and it's heart-wrenching. I read this in one sitting. It's not very long at all, and it is written in verse, so you get through it very quick, but it is so emotionally raw. Like I said, I had tears. In fact, I didn't even have tears. It was the kind of emotional where you just feel it in your chest. This is a book like no other that I've ever read. I was in complete awe of it. I really want to read more of Sarah Crossan's work, but I know I'm not going to get what I want out of it because the rest of it is young adult. I know she's got Moonrise, which I believe is about a boy whose brother is on death row, and that sounds fascinating to me, so I want to read that one, but I don't know if how others appeal to me. I want to read about adults. This was fantastic. This was a book that I bought purely because of the cover. I saw this advertised on Twitter and I just thought it was absolutely stunning. It's bright orange, it's got black and white flowers on, it's got bumblebees on. Underneath the jacket there is another bumblebee, and this is also a signed copy. So I'm very lucky to have this book, very happy that I loved it. And I know cheating isn't for everybody. I know some people really hate that in their books, but this exploration of human emotion and grief and torture, I want to say, it was stunning. And if you only ever read one book about cheating in your life, make it this one, because my little heart. So those are all the books that I did read in the month of September. Like I said, not many of them at all, but also ones that I did really enjoy. I really enjoyed every book that I read this month. There wasn't a book that I just thought was mediocre. All of these books I think got at least 4 stars. Highly recommend all of them. I just hope that October is a little bit better. Finished one book already this month, which is fantastic, and I've got a few more that I'm partway through, so hopefully this will be a month of finishing books that I've already started. We will see. I'm back at uni now. I'm doing my queer literature module, which I'll leave a link to the reading list up above so you can see what I will be reading in the month of October, as well as my horror TBR, which you can check out as well, because that is what most of my reading this month is going to be. Do let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you did, what did you think of them? Because I'd love to know. I want you to read Here is the Beehive so much. You have got no idea. I just think that book. As usual, guys, I will leave my links down below to my Twitter and my Goodreads and all that good stuff. Come and follow me on there and talk to me about books, and I will see you in another video very, very soon. Take care. Bye.